The Manufacturing Edge, where ops leaders break barriers, drive growth, and redefine what's possible. In part 2 of the Back to the Basics series, the team explains why AI and automation only deliver results when standard work, visual management, problem solving, and leadership discipline are firmly in place.
There's one way I think you could perhaps think about uncertainty. It's a little bit like we think about setup production. So convert things that are uncertain to certain, or a little bit of focus on the things you can control, the things you can influence and control directly can help you mitigate the things that you can't and be prepared for seeing where those go and how they play out. So if we move over and think about, we hear so much about tech today. If you strip away, what are the basic routines that really you can focus on, manage, drive execution, and can help separate your performance from others? David, where do you see that in the business?
Things that help me do two things. One, visualize that there's a need or opportunity, and two, track my team's performance around addressing those opportunities. We can't fix things we don't know about. And one of the issues many companies have is they have talented people, they have opportunities to work on, but sometimes the two just kind of pass in the night, right? So whether you call that accountability or resource management or what, but visualizing those opportunities and ability to see and follow up on my team's actions towards solving those opportunities, I think are very important things, and technology can help us with those. That being said, not pursuing shiny objects, right? We need the technology to help us do the things that we need to do well, to do those things well.
Berto, how about you? How do you see that?
Well, I'm going to give you some examples because last week I was at the north side of the country. I was in Baja, and what I see is those that we can consider winners for me are very clear, because are the ones who execute very disciplined, the daily management. They go to the Gemba, they go to the shop floor, they make performance visible at the shop floor level, and they are able to solve problems very fast. So if I can say, in an environment where the CapEx approvals are slowed down because of the uncertainty is high, the name of the game is discipline. They execute with discipline, not with technology. And I think that's what has become the primary differentiator between plants that are willing to absorb volatility and those that are in firefighting mode.
So a couple of things to kind of put a bow on this stream of thinking. What we've heard is solving problems permanently and not letting them come back and keep recurring is a fundamental element that needs to happen, as well as, what you just talked about, Alberto, fits into our view, or one of our principles of creativity before CapEx, right? So engage people's thinking, engage the work, and focus on executing without using capital to solve the problem, because that typically won't, right? Automating or new equipment may or may not really solve the problem. In fact, likely usually doesn't solve the problem. Is there an element of what we see out there, and I'll broaden this question a little bit, where we see companies confusing CapEx or technology with progress? So by implementing new technology or new CapEx, that, okay, we've made progress, and they may or may not see the actual execution results from that.
If I may take that question, you're talking about, companies seeing technology and investment in technology. And if we put that word into the manufacturing space, a lot of them are talking about digitalization. If I read technology there as well, digitalization, it's a word we hear lots of clients are talking about. Everybody's talking about it. And we have not mentioned AI yet, but that's definitely on the radar of many manufacturing companies and our clients and the companies we work with. Nevertheless, it's a big challenge. We are a firm believer in, investing in technology where it's valuable, when they can bring you one step further to what we were talking about earlier. Your key problem solving is in place. Your processes are standardized. Then definitely there is opportunity through digitalization as a next step. The challenge is a lot of leaders are seeing it as let's invest in a tool or a shiny app, as we call it, one specific topic that they think they can digitalize, expecting a serious breakthrough as a result of that investment. Typically, they're missing out on the part that it requires people to be on board and to be trained and to really adhere to the new way of working with technology, let's say software investments. That's a big question that's typically lacking in these parts. Is there a huge opportunity by investing? Absolutely. But do it at the right time, at the right moment, and when you have your people on board and willing to make the change.
Now, I would say that, technology investments can be critical, very important. But we have to make sure that we bring our people, our workforce along with us. One of the biggest issues in the U.S. is attracting skilled labor. I can put technology in place, I can automate, but if my team can't work with that automation, if I can't support from a maintenance and programming standpoint that automation, then I'm just creating opportunity for greater downtime and loss. And, I think people think about the technology and what it can do, but they don't think about the support structure behind it that's required from a people standpoint. And, history is rife with opportunities where technology outpaced people's way of thinking and behaving. And we're on the cusp of that. We've got to bring people along with this technology journey that we're on, both in terms of the education level of people we're going to hire, but training and allowing people to be adaptable to that's already in our workforce.
It's an interesting observation, David. So often we think about, well, we could get a robot to do that. I think what's possible is people underestimate a couple of things. That one, they assume that they understand what the process really is, what a person really does, and that we may, in fact, have multiple ways of executing the same piece of work due to multiple people in the process, shifts, so on. And I also think they underestimate the level of support in the form of maintenance and engineering required to get that in place initially, and then to maintain it and keep it running, right?
Yep. Because two pile-on comments to that. I mean, how many examples do we know where companies have put automation in place and it's sitting over in the corner with a tarp over it, or it's got moved to another plant or something like that because it couldn't be supported? And then the other is, going way back in history here in my lean education is, I was told many times and often, don't automate the waste, right? Just doing waste faster is not going to be the right answer.
Right. Well, and which should come in the form frequently of overproducing.
Sure.
The other place I was thinking about from the maintainability, that now what that causes is you have product changes, product configuration changes, engineering changes, that can have a significant impact even if it's a simple pick and place operation of the end effectors and the ways in which you can handle components, right? So if you add new components, you've now got to re-engineer part of the process, and that's not free. On the maintenance front, I think one of the themes that we seem to see, I'll say more so in the U.S. because I don't have a good grounding in Europe and Mexico on it, but we have a mentality of run to failure on our equipment. So if you don't maintain your equipment and you don't give the proper care of it on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, that automation will quickly break down and become ineffective if you run it to failure and don't take care of it. And now you're really in a problem because you can't run at all, or you have to cobble around back to manually how to run the process. So I think without a fundamental shift in maintenance philosophy, it's going to be hard to spend a lot on automation and be effective at it over the long haul, right?
And I think when you do it, you have to be wise about it. Technology in terms of automation come a long way. Automation can be much more flexible than it used to be, but you got to invest in the right pieces of equipment and understanding your demand patterns. One thing about today's economy is the speed and changeover and variability of the things that we have to produce. It's very different from Henry Ford. You can have any color you want as long as it's black. That's not the place where manufacturers operate today. So having equipment automation or otherwise, that's flexible, and people to help support that is really important.
Tune in to part 3 of the series, The Critical Basics Every Plant Must Start Now.